Okay, we are live. It is 7:58. We are going to get started promptly at 8 p.m. or so. There are a decent amount of questions, so we'll get rolling right at 8, and I'll try to answer them. Just going to hang out here for a second. Should just be one more minute. All right, it is 8 o'clock, so let's get rolling here. All right, so hello everyone, and welcome to this week's Hangout. I hope everyone's having a great May so far. We've had quite a few questions submitted, so let's get started. I'm going to try to go through these pretty rapid fire so I can get through all of them. We'll go from there. One thing I did want to mention really quick, I've been testing out this app. I met the developer at the Fitness Summit earlier in the month, and it's called Foodist. I'll send out a post later on this week once I have it written up, but if anyone's interested, let me know. The basics of the app are that it's a paid app. It's like $10 a month. It's for Apple and Android, and essentially, if you're looking for a takeout meal from like a chain restaurant, you can basically have it look at your GPS and say, these are all the restaurants nearby you. These are the target macros and calories you're looking for a meal. And then here are all the restaurants, and these are the specific meals you can order exactly to be able to hit those macros. So it kind of takes out a lot of the guesswork and trying to figure out and looking at nutritional information when you're trying to eat on the run and you didn't really plan ahead. So if you're interested in that, send me a message or an email, and I'll get that out to you. But I will have a post about it. I think it's a great app, and I think it's going to go a lot of places and help a lot of people out. So let me know if that interests you. All right, and on to the questions. Our first question comes from Pat, and Pat asks, when we feel we're ready to start adding to strength training, should we increase rep firsts or weight? April also submitted a very similar question, so I'm kind of just going to pair them together. So for most people, I generally recommend that you increase both reps and sets before you would increase the weight on any given exercise. So for example, at a given weight, my preference is to start with 3 sets of 8. And then keep increasing the reps until you can hit 12 reps. And then you'll add a set until you can hit 4 sets of 12 reps. You wouldn't really need to add any more sets beyond that. That's kind of usually the sweet spot. I wouldn't go beyond that at all. But the idea is that rather than just continuously pushing the weight up, that you want to maintain your form. You want to work across a couple different rep ranges, and you want to maintain your speed of the exercise. So when you're doing these exercises over and over and over again, you're kind of patterning your muscle memory to remember how to do the exercise. So if you're pushing the weight up too fast and your form gets sloppy and you slow down and you have what's called a grinder where the form is just really bad or you're struggling on one side, you don't want your muscle memory to include that pattern. So the idea here is by working across multiple sets and multiple reps and only increasing the weight when you have consistent form across all sets and reps and you're not losing speed or form on your exercises, then you go up in weight. And it's so that you are muscle patterning, and muscle memory is the good form of the exercise and not the bad one. Really wanting to push more weight is an ego thing. You'll have better results if you're patterning a good movement throughout and increasing over time through sets, reps, and then weight. So I believe that answers that one pretty fully. So, all right, we have a couple questions that come from Noah. Thank you for the questions, Noah. Your first question is, what was the craziest thing you saw at the fitness summit? That's a great question. Well, I'm going to break that into two answers. The first thing that I want to say is the most awesome thing at the fitness summit was that how friendly, social, and humble like all the experts in the fitness industry were. Some conferences, not fitness specifically, but just conferences in general, you go and the people that are the presenters or speakers are kind of like separated from the attendees. And it didn't feel like that at all. The people that, whose work that I've admired for 6-7 years came up to me, saw that I was new, and like introduced themselves and hung out and got me a drink and that type of stuff. So it felt very welcoming to people that were new. So I had a great time, met a bunch of people, and I was just impressed with how humble and down to earth everyone was, and welcoming to people that were cared enough about evidence-based fitness and improving people's lives. And it was really great to kind of feel welcomed into that community. The craziest thing that I saw was I'm not going to say names, but there's a 270-pound power lifter who's, I don't know, maybe 5'10", 6 foot tall, 270 pounds, and he ran and jumped over someone that was 6 foot tall and easily cleared him. So the same person was also putting a full-grown adult on each shoulder and squatting with them for reps. So this was after lots of drinking, but it was a very impressive display of strength and athleticism. I don't really think I can beat that one. It was just like, I didn't expect to see that. So that was probably the craziest thing. All right, so Noah's second question is, should I do the group A exercises on one day and then the group B the following day, or should I do them both in one setting? In general, for most people, I've given you an exercise program that if it has an A and a B day, you would do the A exercises on one day and the B exercises on another day. If you're using weights for those exercises, and you're kind of getting to the point where you found the sweet spot where it's not easy anymore with weights, you probably want a day of rest between the sessions. With body weight exercises, it's okay to do them one day to the next. You may not need to take a rest day between sessions, but you do want to have workout A on one day and workout B on the next day. With body weight exercises, though, you may get to a point where you will need a rest day, and you kind of have to listen to your body on that. Past a certain number of reps, body weight exercises, you're going to need to change them up, and you'll have to let me know when you get to that point. Like, for example, once you're doing like 50 push-ups in a set, you're going to need to do something like change the leverages, meaning like you're going to need to raise your feet up, you're going to need to change your grip, or not grip, but push-up width, meaning maybe bring it in a little bit to make it a little bit more challenging. Over 50 reps is a little bit excessive, and you're kind of getting into the arena of endurance training and not strength training. And that's fine, but for weight loss, we kind of want to shift things back to the weight training, not so much endurance training. All right, Noah's next question is, are there any meal replacement or energy bars that you would recommend? Yes. I usually buy Quest bars or Oh Yeah Victory bars. My favorite flavor of Quest bars is chocolate chip cookie dough. And my favorite flavor of Oh Yeah Victory bars is oatmeal raisin cookie. Both brands have cookies and cream, and I'd say it's a runner-up to both of those flavors. There's a trick to these bars in that they're fine room temperature. Quest bars are better when you microwave them for like maybe 30 seconds to a minute, and they kind of take on, it literally tastes like cookie dough. The Victory bars, and thank you, Dana, for this tip, they are better when they're colder, because then they kind of taste like a candy bar. So they're both decent list of ingredients. The Oh Yeah Victory bars are a little bit cheaper. maybe about half. Quest bars, I usually wait till I can get a deal on them. And I'm not sure if you're aware of this. Quest also has like protein chips. They're not exactly potato chips, but they're made with potatoes and they're very high protein. It's kind of like something that I wouldn't eat every day. But again, I'm not really a fan of eating Quest bars every single day for multiple meals. If you really need to have a Quest bar every single day to kind of hit your goals and lose weight, that's fine. But shouldn't make up the majority of your diet whatsoever, because it is a processed food. The fiber count in it is really high. You could kind of go overboard if you're having more than one, and you don't want to be doing that. And I find that, to me, they're hyper palatable, meaning if I eat one, I usually can't just stop with one. I view it as a dessert item that's maybe a healthier dessert choice, but it's still kind of like a treat to me. I personally couldn't eat it every day because I would just probably eat more than I should. So, but those are both good options. All right, and Noah's next question is, what kind of macros should I aim for? For example, maximum grams of sugar and fat. Noah, you'll want to check your program document because it's different for each person. In general, you shouldn't worry about that too much. The hierarchy of importance is that calories matter the most, followed by protein and fiber. And obviously, food choices play a big factor in there well before fat and carbs, meaning if you're eating like whole unprocessed foods, you're going to feel fuller and you're going to have more energy, and you're going to be healthier from the micronutrients you're taking in vitamins. I don't really feel that like vitamin supplements are a substitute for getting your vitamins and nutrients from whole foods. So after all those things are where I would say where the carb and fat breakdowns are. And the importance of the number of fats and carbs is really lifestyle related, meaning some people eat better with lower carb because that forces them to eliminate junk food, so they do better. Some people can't do that, and they do better with a lower fat, higher carb. The one thing I'll say is, and this is still lifestyle and personal preference related, depending on how active you are, you may simply need higher carbs to refuel after whatever type of exercise you're doing. So that kind of may dictate which is a more optimal for you. But there's no one right answer. It's really not worth worrying about unless you're finding that your current way you're eating over time is making you feel sluggish, or you don't feel great, or you don't have enough energy. Then you can kind of get into the nitty-gritty of, am I getting too much fat or not enough fat, or am I getting too many carbs or not enough carbs? So the answer is it really just depends. All right, and the last question from Noah is, what kind of nutritional info should I be looking for in drinking a natural vegetable juice? I shy away from them because I worry about drinking too many calories or grams of sugar at once. Excuse me. I am not a big fan of juices at all unless you're well below your calories and you're full and you're still trying to get enough energy and nutrients into you. Even then, I would avoid any that have extra added sugar. Bad news is I don't really have a Trader Joe's or Whole Foods near me to be able to specifically say, hey, they have these ones. I wish I did, because there's some things that I'd like to try from there. But in the absence of that, if you really had to have a vegetable drink, you might as well go with V8. Probably want to go with a lower sodium one. It's pretty high in sodium. I can't stand the taste of V8. I've tried, but they do make like V8 Splash and V8 Fusion products that are the combination of vegetables and fruits. Because of that, they're pretty good. I haven't bought them in a while, so you'll want to look at making sure they're not adding additional sugar. The sugar from the fruit should be plenty to be sweet. I think some of them, there might be like a Diet Fusion that uses an artificial sweetener, but that kind of just depends on your personal preference at that point. Like I said, I'd personally rather eat my calories than drink them, and I'd only ever recommend you drinking your calories unless you're way below your calorie goals and not hungry at all. As an alternative, you could always take your vegetables and make a vegetable soup, and that way you can get more veggies into you, and it's not like you're not going to need to buy it prepackaged and with a bunch of crap that they've mixed in there, so it's shelf stable. So, and then you can freeze the vegetable soup, and it's kind of like the same thing to me. So, all right. The next question comes from Motz. Motz asks, do you have any suggestions for low-carb meals that can be cooked in bulk that taste good as leftovers? I want to start cooking all of my lunch and dinners in advance on a Sunday so that I'm only really choosing to eat healthy on a single day and then just eating the results of that choice the rest of the week. So Mats, that's a great idea. By preparing your meals in advance, you don't have to rely on willpower in the moment to make that decision then and there. You've already made that decision ahead of time, and you're not relying on your future self to make the right one. So 3 suggestions pop into mind, and this is kind of based on what I do. By default, they're not particularly low carb, but you can kind of modify the recipes if you like. Nor are they particularly high carb, so go from there. Let me know if you can't find these in Google based on the suggestions I've given for search, and I'll provide you the link. The first recipe is meat slop. If you Google Silver Hydra meat slop, you'll be taken to the Silver Hydra website. The recipe there does have some tomato paste, but it's basically meat, cabbage, mushrooms, onions, tomato paste, and there's some alternatives you can add in there, but it's lots of veggies. With the cabbage, it really bulks it up, and it's incredibly filling, and it's one of those things that actually tastes better as leftovers. So for your particular case, Mats, if you're trying to watch your carbs, you can kind of cut the tomato paste in half and not really worry about it after that. I usually try to have my entire freezer stocked with this at all times because it's versatile. You can add a bunch of things on top of it like guacamole, sour cream, that type of stuff, and it's delicious, and it's very, very filling for not too many calories. I mean, you get a big bowl out of it, and it's maybe 350 calories for the whole bowl, so that's why I add a bunch of stuff on top of it, and it's cheaper than having to eat 2 bowls of it. So the second suggestion is coconut broccoli soup. You can Google the recipe, or you can find the recipe by Googling propane, like a propane tank, propane broccoli soup. And you'll like this one because their recipe does include curry powder. And this is apparently, I haven't tried this one myself, but a bunch of people whose opinion I respect say that it's excellent and it's very filling and it's a good way to get a lot of broccoli in you. And Noah, if you're watching this one, you may enjoy this one too as kind of like a soup that could, it's not really a veggie drink, but it's a good way to get lots of broccoli in your body in one quick go without having to chew through all the broccoli. And the last one is making a big batch of chili. Now, I don't have a specific recipe in mind, but this is kind of my second go-to in addition to the meat slop, is I'll make some kind of bean-based chili with meat and a bunch of different ingredients, and I'll put as many vegetables as possible in there. And secret ingredient is usually something that's really spicy, and then maybe a bottle of dark beer, like a Guinness. So there's not a particular recipe. You can, if you're looking specifically for low carb, you can just look for like low carb, high protein chili recipes, and any of them should do. But those are great go-tos for easy batch recipes that are tasty. And just like the meat slop, chili is great because it serves as a base. You kind of cover all your nutrients, and then you can pretty much add any kind of toppings you like. Like I said, sour cream, guacamole, cheese, hot sauce, any of that stuff just goes well on top of there. And it's a versatile base for anything you want to do. And technically, you could even put it in a low-carb tortilla shell and kind of have like a chili wrap, which would be delicious. So, all right, and the next few questions come from April. Thank you for the questions, April. April's first question is, I was wondering how you dealt with loose skin. Lots of people I know are wanting surgery after a large amount of weight loss, and I'm wondering if that's an issue now, or is it only an issue until after you've lost the weight? The answer regarding loose skin is that it's both, meaning that you'll want to do everything you can during the process of weight loss to minimize that loose skin. And then it's really going to depend on a bunch of factors. One of them is just a personalized factor that it's impossible to predict. So I have some loose skin, but in comparing with other people, how much I have is I don't really have that bad of loose skin compared to people that have lost less weight than I have. I have my progress picture that's me shirtless compared to what I was at 400 some pounds on my Facebook page. You can go there and see it if you like. That's an example of what my loose skin looked like at my leanest. I attribute that to the fact that I lifted heavy weights the entirety of my weight loss. So it took me 2.5 years to lose 200 pounds. The entire time I lifted weights as heavy as I could, and I didn't skip workouts pretty much ever, meaning I was perfectly consistent, and I kind of still am to this day. So I attribute it to that, and the fact that it took me over 2 years to lose that much. With the knowledge that I had and the support that I could have lost 200 pounds much quicker. I was determined. I had a deadline with my daughter being born. I could have gone much faster, and I'm pretty sure that if I'd gone faster, my skin issues would have been worse. So with that said, after 5 years, I've kind of maintained a similar weight, meaning I've kind of gone lower and higher, but I've kind of held around the area of 185 pounds lost, which for me is like 220-something pounds. I still have some loose skin. It's getting better, but I'm still considering surgery at some point in the future. I'm not to that point yet, and the reason is that I'm not yet lean enough to the point where there still could be fat clinging to the skin. So it's an unfortunate side effect that if you have loose skin, you may need to get leaner than you would have if you weren't fat in the first place. Fortunately, that's just kind of how it is, and that's really hard. It's coming from someone that's been trying to get to that point for longer than I have to lose the weight, meaning I've been trying to get leaner for 5 years. It's a long process. It's longer than fast weight loss or long-term weight loss, but I would certainly want to get as far as I possibly could before I'd consider surgery, because I don't want to go into surgery thinking that I could have done more for longer and this was actually just fat they're removing. I want to make sure that it's all skin that's left before and just keep going from there. So I would continue to go before I'd even go for a consult. But all right, second question is from April. Morning food is hard for me. How important is eating first thing in the morning, and do you spread all macros evenly, or should it be all protein early to save carbs for night? That's a great question. These types of choices, like meal preference, meal timing, meal composition, these are mostly personal preference. So for me, I like to eat a small meal when I wake up, and then my meals get larger in size as the day goes on. You can check my MyFitnessPal account to see that. You know, usually like my breakfast is 300 calories, my lunch is 5, my dinner is 7, and then I have like an 800 calorie snack right before bed. So I tend to eat more protein earlier on in the day, and then I have more carbs later in the day. That has two benefits for me. That gives me a lot more freedom and flexibility when unexpected social obligations pop up, like someone calling and saying, hey, we're going to dinner, do you want to come? If I've gotten all my protein in, I don't need to try to order a protein-centric meal at dinner. For me, dinner is the most social meal of the day, you know, family sitting down eating together, or it's more likely when I'm going to be out for dinner, so that kind of gives me freedom and flexibility there. So for that reason alone, I recommend kind of getting your protein in earlier and then enjoying your carbs and fat, you know, more carbs than fat later on in the day. And then I'm a big fan of a high carb meal before bed. It helps me sleep better. The other thing is, when it comes to training, when you're training at a certain intensity, having carbs before and after fuel your workouts so that you can work out harder and longer and you'll recover better for next time. For me, I train after work, and it's usually about 4:30 p.m. is when I start. So I'll have like a banana before I train, work out, and then have a high carb dinner afterwards. So now it's going to be different for everybody, and it's really something you have to kind of experiment with, and don't be afraid to do that. So if you feel better having carbs in the morning, go for it. If you feel better not eating breakfast, go for it. But you may want to try just a smaller meal just to see if that helps. But personally, my ideal breakfast is a couple hard-boiled eggs, and then I won't be hungry again after that because eggs are really filling for me. I won't be hungry till lunch, and then I'll have a mostly lean protein lunch with some veggies. And like I said, I'll have a banana before my workout, and then I'll just kind of, anything that I'd want to eat after that would fit in my remaining macros for the day by doing that. So since we talk a lot about preparing your meals in advance, if you eat similar breakfast and lunch 7 days a week, that gives you a lot of freedom and creativity to basically fit anything else that you want to. So if I'm going out to dinner, I'm not super stressed about what my macros are because I've likely already hit my protein goal regardless of what I order. And that's a very freeing experience to not be constrained to like, oh my gosh, I'm going out to dinner and I need 150 grams of protein because I didn't eat any today. Not having to deal with that is a big stress reliever when it comes to social situations. So, all right. Let me check one thing here. Okay, sorry. My email was, some emails were coming in and I wasn't sure if those were more questions. But, all right. It looks like this is the last question, and it comes from Melissa. Melissa asks, starting Friday, I'll be working from home for the next few months on my video games. Do you have any tips to reduce the likelihood of me eating all the tasty food that I have unfettered access to? I have, after all, gone out of the way to stock my kitchen with foods I like. First, that's great. You'll be... Oh, okay, sorry. Melissa, that's awesome that you're going to be working on your video games, which you love. I think that's amazing. That's so cool. So congratulations. As far as reducing the likelihood of not eating all the foods you have access to, I think this kind of comes back to willpower management. You don't want to rely on your willpower to overcome any desires you have related to food at home. So I would kind of work on expanding your planning to not just be to have the meals prepared, but try to plan your meals in advance and track them in advance. So when when you're hungry, you just have to simply look and say, okay, I've planned to have this. I'm just going to go get that and be done with it. If you're going to not do that, the alternative is you're going to go into, stop working on your game. You're going to go into the kitchen and you're going to look at all the food you have prepared and you're just going to grab a bunch of it. And then if you're tracking what you ate afterwards, most people are not good at, me included, are not good at eating something and then tracking afterwards because we're terrible at estimating things. So I really think it does come back to that point of preparing in advance as much as humanly possible. And really just looking at, this is how many calories I have left, this is how much protein. So if you kind of adopt a little bit more of a planning mentality, it'll give you some freedom where you don't have to worry about it as much, and that way you can kind of concentrate on getting back to what you're working on and not having to worry about standing in the kitchen and trying to figure something out and getting stressed out about it. So, just to reiterate, you don't want to rely on willpower to make decisions that align with your goals in the heat of the moment, because we know that doesn't work for most people. It doesn't work for me. It may work for some of you. If it does, more power to you. But really, the old saying is, what is it? Failing to plan is planning to fail. So in this case, just planning in advance, you don't need to be super strict, but just kind of have a bunch of different options that kind of fit in for the meals you have at home. So, all right, let me see if anyone had asked anything else. All right, I don't see anything. I think that's it. Like I said, I mentioned that app called Foodist. I will be putting up a post on Facebook, on my blog, and I'll send out an email relating it. If you were interested in the meantime, just shoot me an email or a message, and I'll talk to everyone soon. Have a great week. Good night.